Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to tonight's second half. Tonight's second half is really going to be something that I've wanted to do for a while now, an announcement, and some really creepy encounters. But before we get into that, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and it does matter. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's second half. Shall we? All right, guys. Important channel announcement. The name is changing. I am changing the channel's name today. It no longer will be Dogman Encounters with Jeffrey Nadolny. It's going to be Dogman and Paranormal Research with Jeff Nadolny. I felt like I had boxed myself in by just saying Dogman Encounters with Jeff Nadolny. And I said when I gave this announcement that I would tell everyone why I chose to name the channel that. Well, really quick, when I started the channel, it was just Jeff Nadolny. And I reached out to a larger channel and said, hey, I'm starting my channel. I've got about 100 subscribers. Can you please help me, give me some ideas of what to do and what not to do? I have an encounter. I'm very serious about this. And the person that runs that channel, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to I'm not doing this. I'm explaining something. I'm not doing this to knock anybody down or say anything negative about anybody, but the person who ran that channel, or runs that channel, excuse me, said, I'm really busy with my channel. I don't have time for you. If you want to share your encounter, come on and share your encounter. I was a little spiteful. I was a little hurt. I didn't realize, the community and people in it were kind of like that. So to be spiteful little jerk, I chose to name it Dogman Encounters with Jeff Nadolny. And I kind of boxed myself in because, yes, I had a Dogman encounter. And yes, I love researching and talking about Dogman encounters. I think they're great. They're amazing. I love them. But I love all of paranormal. I love Bigfoot encounters. I love crawler encounters. I like to learn about skinwalkers. I like Dulce. I like to learn about dumbs. There isn't anything paranormal related that I don't like. I like ghost hunting, which many of you know. I've done ghost hunting in my home. I've got a lot set up in this near future. I am going to be meeting some very interesting people and sharing those conversations with you guys. Right now I'm working on a person who is world famous for his research on alien, reptilian, anything like that. And hopefully everything works out with that, and I'm able to get him on to talk with us, because that'll be really cool. And then I've got some other stuff. I've got something amazing already lined up for October. I've got a holiday or a Halloween fest thing lined up. It's truly amazing. It's going to be cryptid, ghosts, and like when I say cryptid, I mean Dogman, straight up Dogman, werewolf, satanic cults, just some amazing, crazy stuff, world famous stuff too as well. So with changing the name, I can get out of that shroud that I felt like I was under, and I can really start to explore everything that I wanted to explore. I still will do Dogman encounters. I will probably have a Dogman encounter every day. But on the second half or bonuses, it's going to be paranormal. And I'm very excited about this. So I hope you guys are excited. And once again, the channel's name is going to be Dogman and Paranormal Research with Jeff Nadolny. I am stoked about this. Really, really excited. So with that, I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. Let's get into some encounters. Today's first encounter. This is something that happened to me about 2 years ago at a friend's house. She lived right across a fairly busy 2-lane road from a parking lot on our college campus. I say this because the tall lights in the parking lot come into play later. The house has a bay window in the front of it, and it spans across almost the entire front side. In front of this window is a small porch without railings and a 2-person porch swing. Inside the window is the living room, which has a huge sectional couch. And covering the front window is a thin purple tapestry. You can see silhouettes through it, but cannot make out features. Her front yard is about 20 feet long, with tall bushes lining the sidewalk, and the side of her property has 5 tiny evergreen-looking trees that are about 6 feet tall. Now that you have a makeshift diagram, let me explain the encounter with whatever it was. The other 5 people in the house were asleep, and it was about 3:30 in the morning. I went outside to smoke a cigarette because I couldn't sleep. I'm sitting on the front swing, and I hear rustling. I figured it was literally any type of animal and ignored it, but then I heard what sounded like something on 2 legs shuffling through the leaves on the sidewalk at a very fast pace. You can recreate the sound by doing a fast shuffle without lifting your feet off the ground. Now I'm alert. I think I even said WTF out loud. So I stand up, still smoking my cigarette, and look over at the right side of the property, with the tiny evergreen-esque bushes. The sound trailed from the left to the right of the property. Now, like I said, the parking lot is across the street. The tall lights are on at all hours, so it illuminates from behind, leaving me to only see silhouettes. I saw something that may have been around 4 feet tall. It looked like it would be a little shorter than my chest height, and I'm 5'4". And it was peeking out at me, like it was curious, but I also felt like it was malicious because I got this overwhelming sense of dread. And fear. We stared at each other for what felt like a solid 3 minutes. I felt like I was in a trance. The best way to describe the thing I saw would be like it was proportioned but malnourished. Someone once suggested it may have been a midget. I apologize if that term is not politically correct, but I know for a fact it was not. This thing was very thin and perfectly proportioned, like a thin, sickly child. I guess it kind of looked like that little guy from Lord of the Rings movie. I looked down at my cigarette for no more than a second, and when I looked back up, it was gone. I heard movement and I said, "F this," and ran inside and locked the door behind me. Then, sitting on the couch, I was staring at the window when I suddenly saw something run across, blocking a portion of the light from the parking lot as it went by. For it to do this, it had to have been on the porch, where I just was. So that's basically my experience. Thank you for listening. I would love some insight on what you guys think. And just in case anyone believes it was an animal, the area was in South New Jersey, fairly rural, and about 10 minutes away from the Pine Barrens. No, I don't think it was the Jersey Devil. I'm just giving geographic information. Today's second encounter. I live in Galloway, New Jersey. I know about the Jersey Devil and the Pine Barrens and that sort of stuff. I'm also not a real believer, but I'm not against the stuff. I'm sure it's possible for monsters and ghosts to exist, but without having much experience, I don't know. Anyway, last night I was home alone. I'm 16 years old. My parents work pretty late, and they don't get home till around 3 or 4 in the morning. Now I'm used to it. No siblings, just a dog and 5 cats. So I get the house to myself. I'm lying on the couch watching TV, and I notice something out of the corner of my eye. Another pair of eyes looking at me. At first, I just assumed it was an animal or something. We get possums a lot at night, so I didn't think much about it. 5 minutes go by, and I hear this weird clawing at the door. My living room is fairly large, and the TV is in front of me. Then a couple feet away is the dining room table, a sliding glass door that leads to my back porch and yard. The thing was on the porch. I got up to investigate, first by flicking the switch on, and immediately it scrambled off the porch. It seemed to be afraid of the light, so I turned it off and grabbed a flashlight. It wasn't there, so I continued to assume an animal, and I went back to the couch. An hour goes by, and I hear this loud shriek coming from the yard. This time, getting scared, I jump up and ran with the flashlight. I dimmed it down by taking my index finger and my middle finger and kind of coiling it over the light, still making it visible, but not as bright. I shone it around the yard, and the thing was still there. But this time, it was eating something. It looked to be small, like a rabbit or a young deer. Where I live, there are a ton of coyotes, so maybe one had strayed. But again, that shriek was awful and not something I had ever heard come from a coyote's mouth. This thing was human, or close to it anyway. The skin was black and kind of wrinkled. It had long limbs and seemed to be in a crouched position most of the time, but it was extremely fast. I got scared and shone the light at it directly, and again screamed and dashed off into the woods. I stayed up until my parents came home. I didn't tell them, just in case it was something silly. I went to bed for the rest of the night. Nothing about it came up. I really don't know what to do. I'm an animal lover, so I don't want my cats or my dog outside one day and then getting devoured by God knows what's out there. Today's third encounter. My now deceased ex had an affinity for New Orleans. I haven't been back there since his death. Not that I didn't share the same fixation with the city, but I've had too many strange encounters there, and, to be honest, I don't really feel safe going back. The night of our encounter, we hadn't been drinking at all. That needs to be clear. He was a big guy, full of muscles, 6'4". We were just taking a stroll after the streets started quieting down. We really didn't frequent Bourbon Street. In fact, we normally avoided it, as it is a hot spot. I remember everything being a normal walk until we passed the Ursuline Convent, heading back toward the river. I'm normally spot on with directions, but something with New Orleans, Louisiana, makes me lose my bearings, and I rely on landmarks. It's not the off-kilter layout, just something about it throws my internal compass off. I digress. Just after we crossed the street, leaving the corner of the convent behind us, I noticed it became eerily quiet. Not something that happens there, especially as people stumble to their hotels. My boyfriend also noticed something up because he gripped my hand quite hard and picked up the pace. He had a strange look on his face as I was struggling to keep up, and he was taking odd routes. I finally caught what was making him act bizarre. I followed a split-second glance to this building. The best I could say is it looked like a dingy, pale Spider-Man going up the side of the building. I remember him harshly whispering not to look, just to keep moving. He was taking us to Bourbon Street, where there would hopefully be more people. But this was off-season and midweek, so there were less people, and even less than I would have expected. Time seemed to stand eerily still, as if time had stopped, except for us and it. I looked about 2 blocks later, and it was on the roof, clearly tracking something that I prayed was not us. The silence was truly deafening, as my adrenaline was going, and I think I tuned out more sounds trying to escape being prey. This thin humanoid, which was defying gravity, freaked us out badly. We made it to the hotel, with my last memory of a glide being just before the house where the supposed vampire brothers lived and disappeared from. I think it was the most harrowing experience I ever had, and there have been a few close calls in my life. I know it's a quirky city with plenty of fantastical, but this was like we were in another dimension that was the French Quarter. It's something that is to this day still frightening to me. We were completely sober and just out for a romantic stroll in the city. We had a connection with the thing, Shudder. I can't escape it, even over the time. My boyfriend had said little about it. He was even more disturbed by this than I was, and he refused to say anything other than corroborating what I saw, and that it was going on longer than I knew, and it had even come a house away from us when he first noticed it. It's worth noting that before this, we had gone to listen to Johnny Gordon at Lafette's, drank regular soda. I needed to tie my shoe right across the street, and something bit his leg. 2 decent puncture wounds, maybe a half an inch apart on his calf. We brushed it off as maybe he bumped into something and didn't notice, then took our stroll. They were deep enough, though, not to notice, but it was whatever it was. It left no strange overtones to us. The city streets took a weird vibe that night. To be honest, it's left a huge spooky shadow over all of my memories of our beloved quarter. He's not around for me to ask anymore, so I'm asking if anybody else has encountered anything there as well. Today's 4th experience. This happened in October of 2020 in Pelham and Helena in Alabama, as I lived near the border of the 2 towns and followed it into Helena from Pelham. This is kind of long, but I want to be as detailed as possible. However, my interaction with this thing was over an hour and a half, and a lot to talk about. It's been bugging me for a long time, and as much as I try to rationalize what happened, I can't. So I will try my best to share my experience and hope someone will maybe have a similar incident that happened to them. On with what happened. I'm living with my girlfriend in Pelham, Alabama. We live together in a development. We were doing our regular thing, playing video games, relaxing late at around 1 in the morning. Can't get exact dates and times. Anyway, I go outside to smoke a cigarette and I hear a woman yell, "Someone help me!" As I live in a development, I think nothing of it, but it continues, and I also become curious as the yelling continued over 5 minutes, and I became a little concerned. So I start to pay closer attention to it, and I believe the yelling is coming from across the main road. Near my development is a small patch of woods, so now I'm thinking it's a fox, as they make almost identical sounds to a woman, and I thought, okay, it's a fox, but it continues to scream. Someone help me, clearly. I'm not trying to approach it anymore, and just almost try to make sure I'm hearing it right. Then it screams, please help, and please someone help. This is clear. And I'm sure now it's not a fox. I approach closer because I think someone needs help, but the screams are moving away from me, out of the small patch of forest next to the road, down the road, about 50 yards from another development across the street. I entered the development, and now I'm 90% sure this is someone's TV or someone has a Halloween decoration that's making this noise, but it bothers me that I thought I was standing right next to where I had heard it originally. I'm now walking in this development, and I text my girlfriend about what happened just in case someone did need help, but it was probably nothing. I'm trying to follow this screaming as it continues almost 2 or 3 times a minute. Always with this same phrase, please help me, someone help, as I'm walking down the road. It seems more difficult to follow, and it seems to be coming from much further away now. So I decided to just go home. If someone needed help, I thought, why would they be running so fast, as they would have to be covering the distance? As I am walking back home after 4 or 5 minutes, it then starts again much more loudly, and I'm now having a much better idea that it's coming from this larger forest near a cell phone tower. I'm now hearing the screams in the woods about 50 yards from me. I am standing on the street, and as I am listening to this, I notice that it is moving quickly parallel to me. It moves 50 yards to my right, stops, screams, help me, then runs about another 50 yards to my left, and I'm baffled that anyone could move so quickly, and this went on for about 5 minutes. It only stopped to speak and ran again, and this didn't make any sense to me. I wasn't sure how to enter the forest and try to help a person, but I still couldn't see, almost as if it was crawling, as I saw the bushes moving and heard twigs snapping and screaming. Then it screamed a different phrase. Over and over it screamed, why aren't you helping me? It did this rapidly for almost 2 minutes. Then it made a different noise. It started making a very low, almost guttural, grunting, growling noise. This is when I became terrified. I couldn't rationalize it. I'm hearing this woman screaming and this low, grunting growl over and over. I realized this isn't my imagination. This is insane. I then realized how far I am from my house, how long this has been going on for, and everything almost came together. This thing wants me to come into the forest. It isn't running back and forth at a 50 yards distance anymore. It's almost running back and forth 20 yards and very close to me, about 10 yards. It refuses almost to leave the woods, but wants me badly to come into the woods. The grunting becomes way more frequent, along with movements almost running faster and faster back and forth. I think I see something low to the ground, possibly white. It's hard to tell, and it's moving quickly. I'm also scared, so I tried to go to the camera button on my phone, but couldn't find it, and then the grunting was terrifying. I stopped and decided to call 911 immediately. I know whatever this thing was not friendly, as wanting me in the woods. I never heard of this happening to anyone, and that's not good. That tells me this thing probably doesn't leave anyone alive. It hunts, and I was in trouble. I tell the operator where I am, and that a woman is screaming. Once the Helena police show up, it stops. I am so sorry for this being long. I just need some answers. What do you guys think it is? Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I hope you guys are just as excited about the future of the channel as I am. I've got a lot planned. I've got some really great ideas. And I just want everyone to know that I will never, ever stop doing Dogman. Dogman will be the primary focus, but I just don't want to be boxed in to just doing Dogman. I want people to know that I am ready to do anything. I've got a lot of ghost hunting equipment. You guys have seen it in some of the videos that I've made. I've got a where my oldest daughter saw whatever she saw, a Dogman. She thinks that right now she's on the fence about thinking it's maybe a shapeshifter. But I want to go down in the haunted cemetery with all of my ghost hunting equipment and do a video there. I've got a lot of really neat ideas, and where I live is a hot spot for a lot of paranormal and a lot of Bigfoot. So by just changing the name just a little bit, I'm opening the door to a lot more terrifying encounters, terrifying events. And I hope you guys will welcome this journey that I want to take, because I want to take it with you guys. So may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life.